I love Red Dead Redemption 2. It is one of the most touching, thought-provoking games I have played in my entire life. But having now spent over 200 hours in this action-packed time machine showcasing the Wild West, it is clear that there are some flaws in this masterpiece. So like a strong lecture from Arthur to John, it is time to give the game we adore some tough love. Here are 5 things Red Dead Redemption 2 messed up on. Number 1. Autosave from hell. One of the most criticized features of RDR2 is its autosave. 8th generation console games have sophisticated autosave features that work in the background and are taken for granted by us players. Whether it is timed saves or autosaving when you do a particular repetitive action like pulling up your Pip-Boy in Fallout 4, or saves after big events in the game like finishing missions, autosaving is basically a given for games of RDR2's generation. But while playing the game, you feel genuine gratitude toward all those other games that blessed you with autosave. Because in this sprawling Wild West adventure that is hundreds of hours long, does the game autosave when you complete a mission? No sir. Does it autosave when you finish a side quest? Not a chance. Does it autosave when you kill a mysterious, elusive, legendary creature? Nope. Does it autosave every few minutes or when you do a repetitive action like get off your horse? Hell no. Does this mean RDR2 does not have an autosave feature? No, that is not the case, because it definitely has the feature and it only works when you die. What kind of sick cruelty is this autosave? Instead of aiding you in saving the game after you progress or conquer a difficult objective, or after a certain amount of time has passed, RDR2's autosave feature activates after you get killed in an intense gunfight or accidentally fall off a cliff, an event that is usually preceded by the death of your horse, your one loyal companion that is with you throughout the game. So if you're like one of the millions of modern game players used to background autosaving and spend tons of time checking off missions, unlocking abilities, finishing side quests, only to be killed in 3 seconds by a gang of rowdy Lemoyne raiders, congratulations. You now have to choose between living with the death of your maximum bonded horse and the loss of whatever was on her pelt, or replaying all those unsafe events just so you can keep your horse. The other option is manually saving the game every time you remember to by going to the menu, opening story, selecting save game, which by the way does not work in the middle of missions or quests. What is this, 2005? Do I need to insert my old PS2 memory card and delete one of my Smackdown Here Comes the Pain memory slots to save my progress here? RDR2, come on partner. You messed up on the autosave in this amazing game, and we all noticed it. Number 2. Here we gunfight again. RDR2's gunfighting has endured as a superior feature in modern video games, with an impressive gunplay style, a frenetic pace of shootouts, an icing on top dead-eye mechanism which leaves you itching to go back to the thrill of firing headshots as soon as you finish a tense mission. However, the gunfights become repetitive pretty much from the start. During the game, as the Vanderland gang expands their domain across states, they make powerful enemies from 3 gangs: O'Driscolls, Lemoyne Raiders, and Murphy Broods. This means that when you're free roaming the Old West, you will see pockets of these gangs in the wilderness and have the opportunity to take them out. However, these shootouts play out each time exactly like the same record playing on loop on Dutch's phonograph. They are spotted the same way: smoke in the distance, a couple of resting carriages on the side, gang members sitting in a circle almost always in the same spots, and a minute after you take them out, a couple more arrive from the same direction and fall even before they can get off their horses. It's especially tiring with the Murphy broods because every spot of theirs starts with them looting corpses and the same dialogue sequence triggers every time you see them. For a game that has a cornucopia of weapon selections and even goes the extra mile of allowing you to customize every part of your shooter of choice, it never feels like the full potential of the gunfight's diversity in this game is fully realized. These free roam gunfights feel repetitive and boring, and after finishing roughly half of the game, I found myself wanting to just avoid them entirely. Well, what about the in-mission gunfights? Sadly, even those become repetitive and tedious as the game goes on. Especially starting in Chapter 4, with the enemies around us increasing, most missions follow the template of Arthur and the gang being surrounded by goons, leaving us with the only choice of treading forward and shooting goons. The elements of mystery, caution, slow burn are all thrown away around the midpoint, with almost every mission coming in swinging like a wrecking ball with the same shoot, move forward, shoot style play. There are sprinkles of inspiration, like a sniper heavy mission in Chapter 6, or an actually purposeful shooting mission at the Hanging Dog Ranch to help Sadie Adler get her revenge. But most other missions just induce shooting fatigue, and after a while can't help but make us feel, here we gunfight again. Number 3. We lost the plot, Buckaroo. Red Dead Redemption 2 follows a masterfully written story full of intense moments and action-packed thrills for the first 4 chapters. Then, much like the characters who get shipwrecked at the end of that chapter, the plot just gets lost at sea. You wash up on the island of Guarma that shows to be a massive landscape on the map, but you only stay in a roughly 5 square mile radius. It is also the shortest chapter in the game, with a handful of shooting missions that happen in quick succession, and you finish up what you thought would be this amazing departure in just 2 hours. Then, once you land back in Van Horn, most of the story just completely unravels, sadly. A Native American group, the Wapiti tribe, and the army both get added to the story and become the most important thing for the gang members, leading to quite a few distraction missions and some uncharacteristic choices for Arthur. You see, up until the first 4 chapters, the game sets up Leviticus Cornwall and the 3 gang factions, O'Driscolls, Lemoyne Raiders, Murphy Broods, as the gang's main antagonists, with Pinkertons on their tail for good measure. But by the end of Chapter 6, 2 of the 3 gangs make no impact to the story anymore. The Pinkertons fail to make any lasting impact. Retribution for dead gang members is completely forgotten, and Dutch just kills the untouchable Cornwall in a cutscene in the middle of Chapter 6. The final missions then become shootouts, centered on the Wapiti conflict, and force Arthur and the good guys of the gang to kill tons of army soldiers, which feels very evil for who they are at their cores. We see throughout the game Arthur showing respect to the army, especially with some of his side interactions with the armless quote-unquote veteran and then Colonel Monroe. It feels like the creative team did not know how to resolve all plot threads cleanly at the end, so they just added characters and missions just to make things feel crowded and heated. Consider this alternative. We actually find in Chapter 6 that Dutch and Micah actually made peace with the O'Driscolls, Lemoynes, and the Murphy Broods, much to the chagrin of gang members like Arthur and Sadie, and are now going to take out Cornwall and the Pinkertons, all to get the Cornwall money for that one last score. This would actually keep Dutch and Leviticus as the main villains, give emotional weight for Arthur to take out Cornwall's Pinkertons for having killed Hosea and Lenny, have plenty of bad guy fodder for Arthur and gang to shoot guilt-free because they are the bad guys you've been fighting the whole game, and then you sprinkle in a bunch of betrayals and Mexican standoffs between everybody. This way, you resolve everything with the actual folks you've been interacting with, and you still get the amazing endings to characters like Sadie, John, and of course Arthur. I'm not saying this is the best way to go, but the approach should have been along these lines to keep the story tight and focused instead of just throwing everything at the wall. The plot starts like Pearson's stew in Chapter 1, tasty and centered on one big legendary buck or bison, but toward the end, it becomes a Chapter 6 Pearson stew, a mishmash of everything you find in the forest, which fills up the pot but doesn't actually leave you feeling full or satisfied. Number 4. The fury of the first-person experience. Look at this view. It's a nice view, isn't it? So majestic, so peaceful. Let's just switch up the view to first person for a closer look and what incarnation is this monstrosity? RDR2 just went from one of the best looking games ever made to a pixelated mess from a 1995 MS-DOS game, all because of a change in perspective. The game does a lot of things well, but their first-person experience leaves a lot to be desired. Firstly, switching from third person to first person is not elegant. The view gets skewed immediately, and your center point of focus gets moved to the side, which makes switching a bad idea when you're in a shootout trying to survive. Most objects that we see also become clearly dotted, exposing holes in what would have been a perfectly good view in third person. God forbid you ever switch to first person while riding your horse. It induces what I can only call video game motion sickness. It makes the world feel woozy and out of focus, and you immediately want to switch back to third person. Instead of actually looking at the world, you see the million hairs on the back of your horse's head, its ears, and everything else is pretty much blocked from your sight. The horse riding first person view is also not very accurate because when we sit on a horse in real life, our sight is much more elevated than where the game puts our vision. The back of our horse's head is actually much closer to the bottom and doesn't completely take over our line of sight. I am not saying the first person view is a complete failure. There are a few benefits for this view, namely when you are investigating areas looking for loot or wanting to take a closer look at the result of your gruesome kill. The novelty of watching how each gun reloads is also a cool side benefit of the first person view. But overall, it is a far cry from the first person view of a game like Doom or Fallout. It is likely another victim of the not enough time situation for the Rockstar devs making RDR2 and feels like an obligatory addition to the game instead of a complementary one. Number 5. Where is the cut content, Cowpoke? RDR2's open world is massive, with so much for a lone gunslinger to do, it boggles the mind. Along the journey, you run into tons of interesting quests and items that enrich what is already an elite player experience. However, scattered across this world are also so many questionable elements that go nowhere. So many areas that feel uncharacteristically empty. It is hard not to get frustrated and melancholic about the missed opportunities. Items like the missing princess poster in Van Horn feel like a lost chance for a really interesting mystery side quest. Items like the crashed meteorite that was set up really strongly with the burned down house, the UFO sighting, or the creepy river monster, the awesome blunderbuss that you never get a taste of. All these just continuously scratch away at our hearts while playing, making us sad that we are unable to resolve them, even now, 7 years since the game was released. Factor in some crazy discoveries within the game's code, like Arthur's wife Eliza and son Isaac actually being characters, and his wife even being part of the gang for a bit, and you cannot help but feel a little cheated out of tons of content. The frustration increases tenfold when you go to huge landscapes that are completely empty, like Guarma, taking us to an exotic foreign land, dedicating an entire chapter of the game to it, only to make a few miles of it playable, and that too just for main missions, is a travesty. Also, finding out that Mexico, another entirely different landscape, is actually enterable in the game through a glitch, only for us to end up in an empty land full of possibility we will never realize, is just really heartbreaking. Imagine Arthur actually exploring Guarma, channeling his inner Indiana Jones, or having a completely different life experience in Mexico. The bad part is also not so much that these are parts of the game, it is that they're just left out in the open, easy to find, and then lead to dead ends with absolutely no explanation or context. It is safe to say that in my experience, RDR2 is the game with the most unattended cut content pieces, and actually not even closing them up in future upgrades just feels like rubbing salt on the wound. With these cut content teases, Rockstar was channeling their inner Dutch. Just like his proverbial one more score and we are off to Tahiti quote, thrown in our face many times, the game just keeps these out in the world for you, but has no plan to actually take you anywhere with them. These are 5 things that I noticed that Red Dead Redemption 2 messed up on during my experience. It does not diminish my love of the game, but I hope Rockstar is aware and can fix these for future Red Dead games. What is a flaw that kept gnawing at you during your playthrough? If you enjoyed this video, please slap your lasso on that like button. There is a lot of RDR2 for you to explore here on the channel, including other essays about this epic Western game and my playthrough of the game. Take care, Cowpoke!